So this just underlies, let's just get real here, everybody. I lost my costume, is that why? No, I'm going to tell you the real reason why. I've never liked Halloween. I'm admitting it in front of you and God and everyone. You know what? I didn't like Halloween growing up. And I can pinpoint the moments as to why. Would you like to take a deep dive into my psychology for just a minute? Sure. So when I was in second grade, now remember, second grade was probably around 1977. I'm thinking it was around 1977. Before that, for anyone less than 52 years old, everyone made their own costumes. But in 1977, I went to JCPenney's on the Golden Mall in Burbank with my mom. I can remember it very clearly. And there was a table with boxes, kind of like how we have cookie boxes today. It had costumes in it, pre-made costumes. And I saw a Wonder Woman costume, and I thought, this is fabulous. I am going to be Wonder Woman. Now, the costumes back then, in 1977, give or take a year, it was like a plastic bag that you put on yourself and a plastic mask. I would like to share it with you. There I am. Judy says, I'm sorry, Stacy. So I was one of like 2 kids in the whole school who had the store-bought costume, but it was amazing. It had this sequenced mask. It had the bat. I had boots. It was amazing. My mom made my brother, who's 5 years younger than me, a little bat boy costume. I was feeling good. So I went into now I'm in a 3rd, 4th grade combination class. And I sit down, and the 4th grade boy across from me says, you're cross-eyed in that mask. You look cross-eyed. Are you cross-eyed? And now everyone around is going, oh yeah, she's cross-eyed. We need to give Judy a tissue over here. She's like really feeling me. So then the whole thing about costumes became so anxiety-producing. But now remember, in the late 70s, early 80s, this is also the time that the news starts to say, you gotta check your kids' candy for needles and razor blades. So now I come home at the end of the night and we're sifting through the candy to make sure we don't find any razor blades and sharp objects. Now in the meantime, my mom always decided the Butterfingers belonged to her. So now she's pulling out the Butterfingers saying, and these are mine. Now, I was thinking about this last night. I'm like, actually, okay, at least she was upfront and honest with it. Because most parents, they just sneak at nighttime and pull out their favorite candies, right? So at least she was upfront about it. But so there was that too. And then just one little last thing about my terrible middle-class Burbank upbringing was that there was a house. We go up and we go, trick or treat. And he would say, trick. I'm not giving you candy until you tell me a joke. So then we had to come up with a joke. And it wasn't like one for the group. Each one of us had to tell a joke. So now, I was not a budding Sue-on comedy now I had the stress of trying to come up with a joke every year. So this is what added to my, I don't like Halloween. Now, I like going out with the friends. I like getting candy. I liked at school we usually had Halloween parties, or maybe friends had Halloween parties. When my kids, about 12, 14 years ago, when my kids were, in elementary school, then I allowed myself, I said, Stacy, come on now. You need to get back into it again. So then I started, dressing up. And actually, our neighborhood has it's fantastic for trick-or-treating. So that was all lovely. But I was thinking, it reminds me a lot of life. Because a lot of times on the outside, life, especially social media, can look like fun and joy and lots of smiles. But then there could also be this other side that's anxiety-producing, scary, pushes us out of our comfort zone. And in the past, I've spoken about life and our feelings, looking at it not just like this or that, but as this and that. In other words, I can say Halloween is fun and silly, and it produces anxiety around costumes and haunted houses for me. See, it doesn't have to be just one or the other. I was thinking about Thanksgiving dinners. So moms and grandmas, we're going to give you permission to say, I love cooking for my family, and I'm exhausted and ready to hand this over to someone else. Because wouldn't that be authentic? And it's the authenticity that means that we know ourselves, even those parts of ourselves that we may not want to look at or admit. Because then your next response might be, but aren't I a bad mom or grandma if I say I don't want to have the family over anymore? No, you're an honest one. And you're honoring yourself, and you're honoring your own self-care. It invites more honesty in. Authenticity invites more honesty. And what's so great is that then you might say, well, then my family would revolt. And then guess what? We've just cleared up the problem, right? Because if they revolt, they're not there anymore. So now you don't have to cook dinner. Win-win. But here's the thing, to be okay with allowing other people to have their feelings. Everyone gets to have their feelings. So they can have their feelings, and you can have your feelings. See, here's where the shadow comes in. The shadow here is thinking that we need to please everyone, we need to take care of everyone, we can't have anyone upset with us, we can't disrupt the balance, we can't give our own self-care up to other people. And men do this, but it tends to be a woman-heavy issue. I think partly because we're nurturers, but also because I just feel like we've been told we're supposed to, right? But no matter what the case, in both cases, I invite you to look at yourself and the parts of yourself that may say one thing but mean another thing. Because that's what our shadow work is. Shadow work means that we're looking at the shadow, that parts of ourselves, our personality, that we may not want to look at because it's uncomfortable. So how else might this shadow part of ourselves show up? Okay, so take those disagreements that you might have with family or friends, and then being able to really honestly look at yourself and your own reaction, non-reaction, words within that situation. But she's just wrong. Well, maybe the issue then is holding on to the idea that you can't possibly be wrong. Maybe the shadow there is that you've allowed for no room for perhaps you're wrong. One of the greatest things of motherhood has been realizing that the truth oftentimes is somewhere in the middle. Yeah? Oh, now we've got ghosts blowing stuff all over the place. The spirits are happy with that, everyone. Yeah, so the shadow part of ourselves says, I must be right. But the shadow work says, well, I've been showing up saying I have to be right, but maybe I can ask the question, is it true? Is it really true? So looking at our shadow self means we start to look at the personality traits, those habits that have a part in creating what happens in our lives. We sift through our whole personality to find the sharp, pointy parts, to find the candy that we don't like. And that's self-awareness. So it's easy to see our strengths, the good parts, what we do well, but it's not easy, well, it's not really pleasant to look at those dark, anxious, scary, icky parts, the and parts. So we can say, I'm this, kind, helpful, and when I get upset, I really yell. Or when someone judges me, I defend myself. See how I can be this and this. But it's about looking at what do we do when we come upon the friction, because there's friction in life. I don't know if you've noticed. So it's about looking at what do we do when we come upon the friction, or what do we do that prevents us from really living our fullest, healthiest life, healthiest meaning body, mind, and spirit. It's mostly because we've been taught that we're bad for making mistakes, or not handling situations well, or our perceived flaws or shortcomings, which of course is not true. Because we've also been taught, we've also not been taught how to look at these parts of ourselves with compassion, with curiosity, with understanding, with loving kindness. So if you want to dive into more of this work too, this book, Your Golden Shadow by William Miller, and I've got a quote here for us. It says, "We journey inward to know ourselves so we may be able to discover the underdeveloped and undeveloped self." Yeah, we go inward so we can discover the underdeveloped and undeveloped self. That's really what this work is all about. And so then the next quote here, "Just as the shadow bears its darkness, it also bears the potential for great good and positive resources for unrealized potential." See, we develop self this way by moving through the shadow so that we can see the light peeking through on the other side with all of our power and potential. We hold on to it. We grasp onto it instead of pushing it away. We return to the this and that, meaning we accept ourselves as we are and where we've been, and we're willing to change and grow. Are you with me? Yeah, you're all deep in thought. We accept ourselves as we are and where we've been, and we're willing to look at those other parts of ourselves so that we can change and grow. But if we refuse to even look at those parts of ourselves that we don't like, or that we want to deny that their presence is even there, it denies us our opportunity to become all who we've come here to be. So if we don't look at all of the parts of ourselves, we have lost out on a great opportunity to grow, to know ourselves better. So a couple more examples. Maybe you wish you didn't get offended easily. So you just start to notice, pause, ask yourself, what's bothering me right now? And we just have to know right now. That's interesting. I really feel like I'm getting offended by this person. I mean, it's political season, everyone. Why is this bothering me right now? Why am I having a trigger to this right now? Versus, I'm always so defensive, or just being defensive, right? But instead, just getting curious. Don't beat yourself up. And when you notice yourself upset, berating yourself, again, we just pause. We go, oh, wow, that's interesting. And now I'm beating myself up. How interesting. Let me get curious. Let me see if maybe next time there's another way. Or maybe I need to go deeper dive into, what is touching that part of me? Maybe you wish you could or would take more risks or be more assertive when it comes to a job or a goal or your own needs getting met. And so you start to notice and become curious. Wow, I'm not signing up for that travel group. I wonder if it's maybe I'm afraid to travel alone. Wow, that's so interesting. I really want to travel. I've been saying I want to travel, but now when the opportunity arises, I'm not going for it. See, that's different than making excuses. Oh, it's too expensive. I won't know anyone there. Oh, it's not really where I want to go to. See, that's the shadow. The shadow makes the excuses for fear. But instead, shadow work says, I own it. I ask, let me notice this. I notice, and okay, what's maybe one step I can take to get to that goal or that conversation? Instead of going through life like a zombie, we're awake. We're the eyes behind the eyes. And we notice with curiosity and compassion. What do we notice with? Curiosity and compassion. So if you notice you get angry quickly, become more conscious of it. Get curious. Ask, okay, why do I feel like I have to defend myself? This is one I'm going to work on, right? Sometimes I feel like someone's saying I feel like I have to jump right in there and defend myself. Take a moment and that's interesting. Why right now in this situation do I feel like I have to defend myself? Defend what I'm saying or feeling? Where did I learn this? Is there some part in my childhood where I felt like maybe I wasn't heard as a child or I wasn't important? And it's not to blame, but it's to discover, because in the discovering we uncover. It's in the uncovering that we heal. See, we all wrestle with demons. None of us are perfect. I hate to say it. But when we choose to pause and observe and change and shift and go in a different direction, that's when we grow and expand and become capable of fully occupying our divine purpose, to show up as the divine wholeness that we are. It's just that we've forgotten. Sometimes we forget that we're already divinely whole. But we transform by transforming. We say that here. We say we transform lives. Guess whose life you get to transform first? Yeah. You don't transform just by saying it or affirming it or wishing it for someone else. We're going to transform your life. I'm going to stay comfortable right here, but your life will be transformed. Right? No, we transform by breaking down and building up again. Do you remember those Transformer toys? So they'd be like a car, and then, this is back to my 80s youth again, I guess. Okay, it would be a car, and then you would juggle it all around, and then all of a sudden it was a big robot. They're called Transformers, and then they came up with movies. See, the car, you could sit there and say, you can transform, but it's not until what? You take the action where you take it apart and rearrange it, and then it's the robot. It's our fifth unity principle. Unity teaches 5 principles. Our fifth one says it's not enough to just know the spiritual teachings or to say it or to affirm it. We have to live it. We have to be it. We have to take action on it. And no doubt, it takes courage. It takes courage to look at our shadows, to notice and become more aware of what's inside of us that we don't really want to look at. It takes courage, even more courage, to accept what we find. And instead of just our hands up resigned to, well, this is just the way I am, or getting depressed about it, because that doesn't do anyone good, but instead to gain insight, positive insight that makes changes moving forward. And then that's where we have the emotional, spiritual growth. I love all of you in these chairs and sitting here, but just coming and sitting here and listening and saying, great talk, Stacy, that's not going to be where you gain your emotional and spiritual growth. It's now hearing it, processing it, and going, now I'm going to go work it. Now I'm going to be the transformer. I'm going to take it apart, and I'm going to build it back up again. Yeah. So we're not going to beat ourselves up about what we find, right? No. We're going to accept it, understand it, forgive, adjust, and keep moving forward. So my internship and practicum in my ministerial program was in the area of addiction and recovery. And I worked the 12 steps. I worked the 12 steps in the Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Family program with our very own Valerie Kobabe. I also worked with Reverend Carla Leitner, but the 12 steps I did with Valerie. And working the 12 steps, and no matter which one of the addiction programs, it's about looking at your shadow parts, the laundry list. And especially with adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families, see, the why of these shadow behaviors, we know the why, because they were children who grew up in homes with alcoholic or mental health issues, a chaotic home. So we know why they took on those survival traits, those shadow traits. And it could be things like people-pleasing, excessive work or busyness, numbing or shutting out, denial, acting helpless. But see, then these are the parts of themselves that they set the intention to notice more often. Oh, I'm people-pleasing. Oh, I'm overworking to compensate. And then they find a healthier way of being and doing life. All of us can take from that. Because then there's also many, many positive traits. The golden side of the shadow. And this all comes from a fantastic program, Emotional Sobriety, by Dr. Tion Dayton. So she says, you know, the adult children of alcoholics have positive traits. They're inventive, they're creative, they're courageous, they're hard workers, they're humorous, self-reliant, independent, loyal, spiritual, insightful, wise, strong morals, resilient. In other words, it's not, I'm an adult child of alcoholics, therefore let me list all the negatives. It's, I'm a adult child of alcoholics, and I'm noticing where I still need to grow. And I'm list of positive traits. See, it's about using the shadow to promote our growth trajectory. Do you hear that? It's about using the shadow to promote our growth trajectory. So, okay, let's sum it up here, everyone. 4 steps. We've got a slide. 4 steps to see what's lurking in the shadows. The first thing you're going to do is observe. Be the eyes behind the eyes. Become more self-aware of how you react and how you show up in life and in your relationships. But you're going to do so with what? Curiosity and compassion, with loving kindness towards yourself. And you know, when you know you're going to be walking into a situation that has triggered you in the past, make the commitment before you walk into it to be fully present to self. Make that intention, I'm going to be the observer, not the reactor. I'm going to stay in the curious. I'm going to stay the observer. The next one is to accept, because we all make mistakes. We've all taken on survival traits. No one's perfect. So we're going to accept what we find, forgive ourselves, and then number 3, then we change, and we shift, and we move forward. And we may need to repeat that many times again, because we may notice something, and then the next time we change and shift, and we've gotten it great. That's an improvement from before, how I would have done it before in my past. But there could be another time we say, oh, I didn't quite do that perfect. We're not going to beat ourselves up over it. We're going to notice, get curious, and how can I change and shift and move forward now? We're continually learning and growing. And then I added this one because it's the most important. I wanted to remind you all, love. Always return to love, because love is who you are. You are part of the loving frequency of the universe. Love is who you truly, truly are. It's just you forgot. So we can all say, it's okay, I just forgot. Will you say that with me? It's okay, I just forgot. Yeah, and then we're going to affirm this. Let me say it first. The truth is, I am love, and I can keep learning and growing. We're going to give our permission. Okay, here we go. The truth is, I am love, and I can keep learning and growing. Now whisper that to yourself. The truth is, I am love, and I can keep learning and growing. Yes. See, love is where the best candies are. It's the sweet spot. So I wanted to end with this quote from one of my heroes, Brene Brown. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. And that, my friends, is my invitation to you, to discover your infinite power by exploring the darkness. And so I wish you a happy Halloween.